Hey, it's Mike, your host of Craft Beer Storm. How are you today? It is Monday. We have another great interview for you, as we do every Monday with someone in the craft beer world. But first, hey, have you gone on iTunes? Give us a rating, give us a review if you like what we're doing. Subscribe. You get these podcasts sent to you every week, actually 3 times a week. We do Monday, we do Movers and Shakers, People in Craft Brew with an interview. Wednesday, we go down the Great American Beer Festival list and we pick another style each week, and we go through the attributes of the style, hoppiness, maltiness, winners of the Great American Beer Festival of the style, what glass to serve it in, all kinds of stuff. Because there's over 100 different styles of beer, and then they have subcategories, so there's a lot of beer, a lot of different types of beer. And then Friday we do Craft Brew News. We go over the drama of the week, and we get that to you. It's all good stuff. So today we have Torch and Crown Brewing Company, and they're currently in the Bronx, and they're looking to open a location in Manhattan, and they're calling themselves Manhattan's Brewery. And these two guys have been, they kind of grew up in the New York area, and we're going to interview co-founder John Dantzler, going through his history, and I had a good conversation with him. So here we go. And we're here with John Dantzler. He's the co-founder of Torch and Crown Brewing Company. How you doing, John?
I'm great. Happy to be on.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for making the time out to come on. And I know you guys are, you call yourselves Manhattan's Brewery, and I know that you're starting to contract brew, and you're going to have a location opening up soon in Manhattan, and also the Bronx too. It's interesting. So tell us your story, how you got involved with craft beer. What your plans are for the future. I know there's a lot of big ideas you guys got, and so yeah, we'll start with that.
Yeah, well, a ton of big ideas, and that Manhattan's Brewery title is obviously a pretty aspirational one. But how we got started, my partner Joe and I were best friends growing up. Grew up right in the area, and when we were 16 years old, we actually got our fake IDs confiscated at a bar over in the East Village. It's actually still there today.
I know, I read that. I'm like, well, don't have any IDs anymore. Why don't we make our own beer, right?
Exactly. We couldn't buy beer, so necessity is the mother of invention.
That's the way I would think, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
So we kind of thought it was funny. Couldn't buy beer, but could buy all the ingredients and kits and whatnot to make it ourselves. So the first batch kind of started half as a joke and half as 2 idiot kids just looking to catch a buzz. So we went out, bought a little Mr. Beer kit, and brought it back to my parents' home, and exploded our first batch all over the kitchen right as my mom was walking through the door. So we both got grounded, but luckily I think both of our parents kind of saw the educational component to it, and I think we're a little curious to see how it would play out. And Joe and I were pretty competitive people, and we'd found something that we really enjoyed. Even that the first process, or that first batch with the boil over all over my mom's kitchen, we really had a lot of fun kind of learning on the fly. And the beer, obviously the first batch came out terrible, and we didn't like that. So, we at that point bought all the books. At that point, switched from malt extracts to all grain, and really, really got into home brewing. And so it went from this joke to this really nerdy passion, pretty immediately. And for the next 2 years, we were going to all these, home brewing meetups and groups, and talking to professional brewers and all that wherever we could. And, we won a few local home brewing awards, which obviously we had to send our dads to accept since we were still underage. But, definitely those awards, not anything to write home about, but enough that we found, that we thought that if we kept at it, we thought we had something. And so when we were 18, actually, we took a trip over to Ireland after high school graduation, and it was there over a pint of Guinness that Joe and I, toasted to one day having a brewery together. And so, even then it was, I think we've done a lot of things, really incorrectly over the years, and I'm sure I'll make 10 mistakes tomorrow and so on. But one of the things that I think we really got right was understanding that we needed a lot more time and a lot more experience, and, really needed to be thoughtful about what we did, to position ourselves to one day have this brewery.
Right. Yeah. I mean, have you guys always been in Manhattan, or where'd you guys grow up?
I grew up right just across the bridge in New Jersey, the lovely Garden State.
Yeah.
And I've lived in Lower Manhattan for the past 8-10 years, pretty much since college graduation.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I'm up in Westchester, so
awesome.
I'm based out of here. So, but I was up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for like 9 years.
Okay.
So I had a brewery up there, and then I just moved back here, focusing in on the podcast. But
cool.
And
awesome.
Just interviewing people like you, breweries and planning, but you got your beer out there already. So what do you have kegs and bars, and you have cans? I see.
Yeah. So we I guess set out with the thought, back in 2008 or whatever that was, that one day we would have our own brewery. And so we iterated through, dozens of business plans. And in the meantime, Joe was always the better brewer of us two. Mm-hmm. I think my talent was asking the right questions to get Joe, thinking where he needed to be. But that was about it. 10 years later, I'm inexplicably still pretty mediocre at brewing. But so we followed, I guess, Joe's talent. Joe studied chemistry, moved out to Oregon, and started brewing out at Rogue out there.
Okay, great.
And meanwhile, I realized, if Joe was the talent behind the operation, figured we probably needed a bean counter as well. So I went to gain some experience on the finance side. Yeah. And over those years, as we kept thinking about what we wanted to do, and as we watched the craft beer landscape change, drastically over those sort of, from 2008 to 2015, 2016, when we started really getting serious, we iterated through dozens of different business plans and kind of, models ranging the full gamut, really. And what we kept coming back to about what we loved about beer and about our brewing process is the fun, and is the sharing our craft with others. And because of that, that led us to this model where we want to be as high touch as possible. And so, that kind of, I guess, if you think about it just in that light, that's the quintessential brew pub model, where, that's all you're doing, right? You're brewing across the room and serving over the bar and able to really have that personal interaction. Now, unfortunately, just brew pub economics without any distribution or to-go component or anything like that, are pretty difficult. And so, what we settled on was a plan in which, where we wanted to really have that personal connection with the people drinking our beer, but in a way that kind of, that enabled us to reach out a little bit further. And so, thinking about looking at different locations, different different kind of neighborhoods, and, even just thinking about kind of who we are, we kept coming back to, there's this massive, relatively uncharted territory in Manhattan. The New York City beer scene has really come into its own in the last 10 years. There are tons of phenomenal breweries, but they're out in mostly in more of the sort of industrial neighborhoods out in the outer boroughs. And, what we love about the city, again, I've lived in Lower Manhattan for a long time. I love it here. What we love is sort of is this buzz and this vibrance that's really really unique and really felt downtown. And that led us to wanting to kind of match the city's ambitiousness with a ambitious to the point of crazy project of our own. And so there are about a jillion reasons why opening a production, a manufacturing operation, a factory in downtown Manhattan, right in the heart of the city, is a bad idea. But that, I guess, was somewhat attractive to us. That here's this thing that is seemingly insurmountable. Yeah. But if done correctly, will really get us to the heart of the city that we identify with, and the people that we call our own. And so to us, as we kind of went through all the options, there really was no other option for us, no other choice. It just kept coming back to we want to be in the city's beating heart.
Well, I see you're distributed all over the place, all over Manhattan and Brooklyn too, and in Long Island, and you're even up here in Westchester too.
We are a little bit, and so that's been. We were fortunate to acquire another location in the meantime. So what started as our first brewery, this Manhattan brewery, by the time years later we finally opened the doors, it'll be location number 2. And what happened there, so Joe and I decide, okay, great, we're gonna get out and open a brewery in Manhattan, so raise a little investor money, get the SBA program involved, all that good stuff.
Right.
And then we walk out and try to find a location that, one, is in a manufacturing zone, which already really limits what you can do in Manhattan. And M-zone buildings are all over the outer boroughs, not so much in Manhattan. 2, can support, the massive demands of a brewery, the power and utilities, structurally holding all those heavy tanks, logistically, where do how do shipments come in and out? How are you dealing with spent grain? Just, the list goes on. And 3, where we can make the economics work. Obviously, brewery economics are a thing. There's a lot of space in a brewery that isn't easily monetizable. You have your a lot of square footage devoted to storage, and even the tanks, right? As compared to a bar or restaurant where most square footage is can be packed with paying customers. So all of those factors, combine, and all of a sudden, it turns out finding a place to build a production brewery in Lower Manhattan wasn't that easy. So we looked at
the rent.
Oh yeah.
So what do you do? You picked a place though. You have a place that
we did. So that was. It took us years. We toured over 250 places. We looked more thoroughly at 139 different locations.
Yeah.
We had a couple leases. One lease we had signed, pending our engineering diligence, and it turned out that building had basically lied about everything across the board. And when we did some core drilling, we found out that if we put tanks on these floors, they were going to fall through.
Jesus.
Which doesn't seem like, if you're a building owner, it doesn't seem like the thing you want to be lying about, but either way.
No,
and we also
you got to support that stuff. You got to have a lot of
exactly,
and that costs a lot of money to support that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we had another lease that was on the verge of being signed, and there were some pretty powerful, pretty wealthy people who owned the condos in the building above it, and so they came to us and basically sued us out of that building.
Jesus.
Oh yeah. So it's been, it's been a long process with, a lot of ups and downs trying to find the perfect building, but we ended up finding it. This is a building that, has the full engineering package that we need, the full utilities, 18-inch concrete slabs that can support the weight of our operation. It has a loading dock with a separate freight elevator. It kind of checks everything we were looking for, and it's in an amazing neighborhood with a lot of the kind of young startup and sort of young energy that we are trying to embody and trying to mirror on our side of things.
Yeah, it's going to be in Soho, right? Soho Square.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So,
right
and
off
then
6th Ave.
What kind of system? Like, how big is your system going to be down there?
It's a 10-barrel, 3-vessel system down there.
How many fermenters are you going to put in there?
We have 6 10-barrel and 4 30-barrel fermenters coming.
30. Wow.
So should be able to.
Is that on the second floor, or is it going to be on ground floor?
It's spread over 3 floors, and this is what's really awesome about the space is it actually has
3 floors. Wow.
3 floors, so it's a ground floor, a basement, and then a sub-basement. And the sub-basement stretches out literally under the streets of Manhattan. So you have this floor that's two stories below street level, but has 35-foot high ceilings.
Wow.
And so we're putting some fermenters down there, rigging them and getting them in is going to be a fun day. That'll be a challenge.
You're gonna have some ventilation. You got to vent. Where are you going to brew? On the bottom floor or the top floor? You're going to do like gravity fed. You can save a lot of money.
Fun. Get back to our homebrewing
Put the
days.
brewery on the top, on the roof, and you can just gravity feed everything. Well, that's pretty cool that you can do that. Oh, all right. That sounds good, man. So you're going to do that. You're going to put 10-barrel system. Okay. And then in the Bronx, you're going to do another one, right? You said, or?
Yeah, in the Bronx. So while we were, spending years looking for the perfect place for a downtown brewery, there was actually a brewery that went bankrupt up in the Bronx.
Okay.
So we were able to acquire those, the assets kind of after, once they had vacated, I guess. And so that's a 30-barrel system. It's from 1995, so super manual. And then with a mix of 30, 60, and 90-barrel fermenters. So that was a project in its own right. We took over this place and when we first started brewing, there weren't even temperature control boxes. It was just, glycol was controlled with ball valves only.
So are you doing both? You're doing both. You're doing like contract brewing and you're brewing already, or
yes?
Okay.
Yeah. So when we first started, we were we're lucky to have a lot of great friends within the New York City and surrounding brewery scenes that needed a kind of quality focused contract brewer. And so when we basically went from went overnight, having 0 barrels capacity and no brewery to this massive facility in the Bronx with, 10, 15,000 annual capacity up there. And so, what made sense, we weren't ready to launch our brand. We wanted to launch our brand kind of, in conjunction with getting the Manhattan place at least closer to being online. At that point, we hadn't even signed a lease yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what made sense there was to turn around, and create partnerships. And so to bring in some other cool brands that we align with, and way more important than brands we align with, brewers that we align with, that brewers, whose process we respect a lot and who we wanted to work with. So we were fortunate to find a lot of breweries that were willing to trust us with their baby. And so we made a lot of beer for a lot of different breweries over the last couple of years. And, that was the first month we were in there. Joe and I took turns sleeping on a cot in the cellar and waking up every 45 minutes throughout the night to walk the cellar and manually adjust the glycol until we built automatic temperature controls in there.
Oh boy.
There were a lot of sort of design choices that I wouldn't have made, I will say, in that brewery, that we had to sort of slowly rip out and rebuild a lot of the infrastructure while we were operating. So that that was a crazy experience. I'll say it's definitely the most fun I never want to have again.
But you'll always remember that, though.
Oh, hell yeah, definitely.
Those are the things you remember, and,
mm-hmm.
When you're going through
Exactly.
it, you're like, oh my God. And then afterwards you're like, you know what? That was so cool. We did it. But,
yep. I definitely look back fondly on, we had a couple late nights, trying to rewire the boiler. And, couple, basically, staying up overnight, trying to get the thing going. And, you're living off kind of Miller High Life and Chinese food, definitely, I look back fondly on those days, but also, glad we're not doing that today.
It's a lot of work, opening a brewery and maintaining a brewery. I mean, I did it on my own. Like, I did a brewery on my own.
Oh, man, really?
It was insane. Yeah, I was insane. But I learned a lot, though. And I learned so much. It's like, hey, why don't I do a podcast about it? Because I have all this knowledge and I can talk to other people and other brewers. And, I get media passes from the Brewers Association. I'm going to the Craft Brewers Conference. They gave me a media pass again. It's awesome. And I went to the last one last year, and that's a great event. If you haven't been there, you should go, because it's just a lot of people, a lot of connections, a lot of new products, a lot of ideas that you can get.
Yeah, we'll be out in San Antonio.
San Antonio, yeah, awesome. Okay, good.
I think we're bringing some beer too. We're going to try to pour at some events. So it's fun.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it's an industry that, and that's why I do this too, to try to promote. I wish somebody would have done this for me, right, when I was a brewery. Yeah. I try to promote local breweries and what they're doing, and try to just kind of drive the point home that you just don't pour powder into water and make beer. It's it's a process, and there's just so much behind it, and people put their lives into it, and it's a passion. You got to have a passion for it, or you're just not. It's not going to work. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of where I'm going with the whole podcast, but everybody's been appreciating it, and so we're just trying to grow it from here. So what do you think? I mean, I've been up in, I just relocated back actually, but I've been up in New England. I've been out of the Manhattan beer scene. You're saying it's like kind of blowing up, the whole New York loop. I know Long Island has like 100 breweries or something like that. That's what somebody was telling me.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Really?
There are now, I believe, 45 breweries in New York City.
Wow. Which
I believe, there were, back 10 years ago, there were fewer than 10.
Right.
And so it's been a lot of, it's a really cool scene here. There's a ton of a ton of great beer. There are a ton of great breweries, and what I think is most fun about it is most breweries here kind of have their own thing. There's most whether that's kind of leaning into certain styles that are in their wheelhouse or a certain branding. Like it doesn't feel like there are a lot of copycats. It's kind of everyone's out here, really being unique and really doing doing what they do best. I think it's pretty awesome. But New York's an interesting scene because, obviously, if you think 45 breweries, I mean, that's a lot of breweries, but you think about it, on a per capita basis where,
there's 9 million people, right? Coming into
exactly.
New York City alone, it's like half the population of the state.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we have
more. I didn't even know. I mean, that's a figure I had for a couple of years ago.
And so
I don't know.
You look at like a Portland or a San Diego or something that has, far fewer people, and they have double, triple that amount of breweries. I mean, I think there's just thinking about it that way. There's room to grow. But the thing about New York is that, one, it's a challenging business environment, just navigating regulations, red tape, and all of that. I can't speak to anywhere else. I haven't opened a brewery I haven't opened a business anywhere else, but I know that New York is kind of definitely among the more challenging environments that way. But then the second is just, because of this high population, New York gets the best from everywhere in the country and everywhere in the world. We think about, it's a low amount of breweries per capita, but we're also, the shelf space is not limited to just us 40. It's limited to, or it's spread throughout the world. Well before there were many New York City breweries. They're, the best Belgian beer and the best beer from Europe and from the more mature craft beer places on the West Coast and kind of you name it has been here. And I think that's led to just a higher caliber of competition. And I think that shows itself in the quality of breweries throughout the city. And it's something that we're really, really excited to throw ourselves in the middle of. And really excited to try to be a part of.
Awesome. You know what? I'm looking at your website here. You have a guy, I know this guy, Edgar Hernandez.
Oh, yeah?
He came into my brewery. He came right from Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And he lived right across the street from the brewery. So he saw my brewery and he came in. He says, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's our brewery." Bear Brewing Company. So he's like, "That's awesome." And he came by, I gave him some beer, and he was like, we just knew each other and we just kept in touch. Actually, I had him on the podcast. I did a podcast with him because he worked at one of the breweries up in New Hampshire near me. And I saw him on your website now. I'm like, holy shit, that's Edgar.
Yeah, that's
And he has the Trillium. He worked for Trillium for a little bit, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
he's an awesome guy. He makes good beer. So
yeah.
I got to connect with him again. You never know what the hell people are going to be. This is unbelievable. Tell him that you just talked to me. Go talk to him tomorrow.
I will. That's awesome.
I was on Mike's podcast. Bear Brewing Company. He's going to go, holy shit. I got to come see you. Where is he? Is he in the Bronx or?
Yeah, so he's actually kind of overseeing production. Well, with right now, obviously the Bronx is where 100% of our production is. And then as we bring our Soho facility online, he'll be kind of over managing the production logistics between the two.
That's awesome.
So he'll be
all right.
He'll be back and forth quite a bit, I think.
All right, you got good beer with this guy. Good choice. But, and you got a bunch of other people there. You got a bunch of people, brewing, marketing, and sales. You have a real company here, huh? Sales.
Well, let's not go that far, but we're on the road to being a real company, I think.
Well, you got a lot of people.
That's been the beauty of this partner brewing for us is, being able to scale up and to produce the amount of beer that we have in our very short company history, that's required us to get out there and find a lot of talented people. And so, I think that's something that I really take pride in is, we have a really talented team of brewers, a team who's come from some of the big names like Trillium, but has come from around the country and really shares a passion for the beer that they're making. And I think that's really showing in obviously it's a limited amount of products that we've put into market at this point. We've only been selling Torch and Crown beer for about 11 months now. But I think the quality of what's been coming out, and I can brag about it because I'm not a brewer. They don't even let me near the brew deck. I've been thrilled with it, and I've been thrilled. It seems like the people in the city who have gotten to try it, it's been a pretty positive reception so far. So we've been pumped.
Awesome. Yeah, you're on the right path. Looks good. That's so cool. All right. Well, hey, it's been wow, time flies. I suppose I was going to keep it 30 minutes, and it's 30 minutes. So, hey, I appreciate you being on. I wish you the best with your brewery. I got to come visit you wherever you are. Can I come visit you in the Bronx? I should come visit you in the Bronx in the brewery there. Yeah, you don't have a tap room there, though, no? You don't have a tap room? We have
a tap wall over in the corner that we pour beers from.
All right, I'm going to come in.
Yeah, as long as that works for you.
That's cool. I got to schedule some time and come in. But
definitely.
Yeah, say hello to Edgar for me, and we'll have you guys. I'm sure we're trying to connect with a lot of New York breweries as well. We do some events. We're doing some events up in New England.
Cool.
And we want to bring some breweries into that and do some more events at breweries and really promote you guys and let people know that there's an alternative to buying like a suitcase of beer for $10. Buy some real beer. Still, it's just people don't realize it, but it looks like good, man. You're doing well. You're opening in Manhattan. You got the Bronx going, and it's cool. So I appreciate you being on. And
likewise, really appreciate the opportunity. We're I've been listening to a few of your podcast episodes and really love what you're doing. So it's an honor to be here.
No, thank you. All right, awesome. Well, we'll talk to you soon then.
Sounds great.
Thanks. All right, take care. Take care. Yeah, that was John Dantzler, the co-founder of Torch and Crown Brewing Company, just telling us the stuff that he had to go through to open a brewery, buying a brewery went out of business, and then, sleeping on a cot and talking about glycol. The glycol is the stuff that keeps the beer cold. And you got to make sure that beer stays cold or bacteria is going to set in and it'll destroy everything. Also for fermentation, it has to be at a certain temperature. Or you just get bad problems. And they want to be Manhattan's brewery. They have a location in Soho. So, look, they're growing and they're all over the place. There's maps. Check out the website. They're all over Manhattan, Westchester. Now I think they're across the river. I think they have one place in Rockland County where they're serving their beer, which is great. They're growing. So it's a good story. And I wish them well. I'm sure I'm going to go down. I got to try some of their beer. They're in the Bronx, not too far from me. I'm in Westchester, New York now. So that's what we have for you today. Hey, go on iTunes, subscribe, tell a friend, tell 10 friends. Give us a rating. Click those 5 stars. Everything will be okay. And if you got anybody that you want to have on the podcast, Michael at craftbeerstorm.com. Any comments, questions? Things you want to hear, let me know. We're growing. Our downloads are growing, which is awesome. Looking forward to that Craft Brewers Festival in San Antonio coming up in April. Getting pumped for that. I got to schedule some interviews. Got to get people And I'll just travel the floor again, and we'll just interview everybody we bump into, But there's just so many different people in the industry, and it's fantastic, great people. That's what we have for you today. We'll see you Wednesday with another beer style. Talk to you soon.